Steve-O,
Yeah.
the long-awaited pond video.
Pond video finally arrived.
Yay, us.
I even
Okay,
have notes.
I know, you
Right?
kind of prepared, which
Yes.
means that I am at a loss because I have no idea what you're going to talk about.
The pond.
I feel very close to the edge right here.
We are living on the edge.
We...
All
All right.
No, I'm pretty excited about this. The pond has been a project from pretty much day one.
Yes.
And
Well, not quite day one because we moved in December. So.
oh, but it was already churning.
Oh, I
churning.
See. I see.
Even
the planning
before.
counts.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
All right.
Planning
fair.
is 90% of it.
Fair.
Come on, everybody knows that.
It does look beautiful. This summer has been magnificent.
Yes. So we let's see, we moved in end of 2019.
Yep.
Winter. And when the summer, when we looked at the place and the property, the entire pond was green. And it turned out what it was green with was duckweed, which if anyone doesn't know duckweed, it's one of the smallest flowering plants. It floats right on top of the surface. It looks like the itziest bitsiest two-leaf clover. And it covered essentially 100% of the pond.
Right.
So we knew that was there, not unexpected. From aerial photos, we know that this pond has been here for, as far back as the mid 1930s. So it's an old pond. It is both a groundwater pond, meaning that the water table is higher than the bottom of the pond. So
we get some seepage?
So we get seepage. And then it's also basically a drainage ditch.
Right.
Because there is a culvert that goes from the north under the road that is right behind us and then into the pond.
Right.
There's actually two culverts we discovered. There is a culvert right at the bottom of the pond, which tells you that used to not be the bottom of the pond. So it's filled up to that level. From talking with the original owners, they reportedly had measured to 12 feet once upon a time.
Wow.
The deepest we've ever had it at these kind of high water periods is 7 feet in the deepest section. And a lot of the years that we've had drought, it's been no more than 3 feet at the deepest.
Right.
So anyways, old culvert that we've been able to identify actually no longer carries water back and forth in either direction. That must have collapsed many, many moons ago. What was it, maybe 2017, 2018, they repaved, they re-engineered this road.
Right.
And with that, they built a new culvert that carries water into here. That's a continued source of nutrients because to our north is a lot of farmland. And so when water comes through that culvert, it's high in nitrates and
fertilizer,
phosphorus and all that good stuff.
We have live animals on multiple sides of us.
Yep.
And so we get the wash off of all of their stuff too. And this pond is kind of low. I mean, it's not like a bowl where everything rushes into here, but it's bowl-like in that we get a lot of runoff from the surrounding land.
Yeah. Translate that to, it has a good watershed in terms of reliable water coming into the pond as long as you're getting normal to above normal precipitation.
Right.
So that's the good news. That is the only source, perhaps, again, some groundwater seepage, and then the watershed that supplies the water. The negative is that the watershed is highly nutrient laden. So what we've done, what are the things? So first we realize duckweed translates to stagnant water, extremely high in nutrients. That's what duckweed loves. So COVID hit, lockdown, and we were fortunate to have a household filled with 20-year-old energetic.
bodies.
Oh man,
They can outdo us in 20 minutes.
absolutely. So we started several projects. We took the runoff from the culvert. We dug a ditch, a pit, put a big tote in there, and then French drain tile all along the entire road that is behind us here. So all of the runoff that comes off the road actually goes into an 18-inch deep trench with pea gravel and then a French drain that has a stocking over it, and that goes, I don't know, several hundred feet to our south and goes into grasslands.
And the idea there was that by diverting the water and making it slow down, so it wasn't just rushing into the pond, and then diverting it through the grasslands, we were kind of cleaning it a little bit so that we didn't have 100%, it wasn't 100% saturated with nutrients and stuff.
Yeah, and whatever crap is on the road, salt and whatnot. So that's been fantastic. If it's a really heavy rain or a quick melt of snow in the spring, it overwhelms, the culvert just does rush through. But all the rest, it really gets caught up in that French drain and goes into the grasses. Number two, we ensured that around the entire pond there are tall grasses. That does three things. Slows down the water and any sediment. Number two, it catches the water and filters some of the nutrients. And then number three, it reduces the geese who love this pond in the spring and the fall. It lowers the amount of geese that come up on the grass, because again, anybody who's dealt with 50 geese, that's not good. So we like to keep them on the pond and not on the grass or the driveway.
Actually, a thing with geese is they do not like to walk through tall grasses. So
doesn't make them feel safe.
Yeah, they don't like it. And I will also say that the tall grasses around the pond are very good to the wildlife that calls this pond home. We have a lot of turtles, and we also have a fair amount of nesting birds and visiting birds that will hang out here for extended periods. And I think part of that is because it's not just lawn that comes up to it. They can kind of hide a little bit.
Yeah.
So
it really helps. We've had now 3 rearings of wood duck. And so that is pretty cool. The biggest group that flew off were 12 wood ducks. One year, none flew off. That's when we had the fisher. The fisher
that
was
took care of our wood duck.
An incredible predator. Anyway, so back to the pond. So that was a huge first season endeavor. And then the other real big source of water into the pond is to our south. There is a seasonal creek, and the seasonal creek starts in wetlands to our north. That also has a culvert that doesn't come directly into the pond, goes under the road, through our neighbors' grasslands, and then to our pond. And because of buckthorn, which you have heard lots of, buckthorn grew up, shaded the prairie grasses, and undermined the soil. And so what happened there...
Yet another reason to love our favorite plant.
Buckthorn doesn't do a good job of holding bank, not nearly like grasses. And so what happened is spring runoff, spring thaws, started to send a lot of sediment. So pointing in that direction, we actually have a delta of sand and sediment that by the tonnage came into the pond as more and more of that bank got washed away.
When does that seasonal creek run?
Only in the spring. Okay. With the
so just a couple months.
And it's not a problem. It's actually a wonderful source of water because it gets filtered through the grasslands and it was a really nice, shallow, natural prairie creek for most of its year. But when the grasses were killed by the buckthorn, then the bank can get undermined more and more and more. And so you go there. There is an old video where you can see it's like 5 feet tall, the erosion, and all of that erosion came into the pond. So with 5 to 6 20-year-olds equipped with shovels, T-posts, and landscape fabric, we created a series of dams that are somewhat permeable, but again, slow down the water. And then as I cut all of that buckthorn down, I used the buckthorn to create a wall of wood to hold the bank. And that has worked spectacularly well. We now have grasses all year round growing early in the spring, holding that bank. And so now we've got a slow trickle of water it was freaking rapids. You could kayak down there like in the Olympics, I'm telling you.
Okay. All right.
Those were huge projects that have paid dividends.
All right.
They did nothing immediately, though, because it's a slow process. It's reducing sediment and reducing nutrients, but slowly. So then what we did is, while still having said strong labor, we created our aerators.
Yes.
And that was also in that first summer. Again, it's COVID, lockdown.
We had nothing better to do.
We got nothing better to do. You finish working from home and you go and you do your thing. And then the kids were here pounding out the plan.
Yeah.
So we trenched from the house to a
doghouse.
The doghouse houses a pump. And so that was a project. That was the trenching of that, the electrical, that was me and Mark and Colin. And then Colin hit it hard and did the trenching of the tubes that carry the air. So rather than trenching electrical all the way down to the pond, we did it a reasonable distance and a reasonable depth. And then the long stretch we carried air hoses. And so then the air hoses are underground until they get to the bank where we have the ejection pump for our geothermal, which is also a source of water. Not very much, but is a bit of a source of water.
7 gallons a minute.
7 gallons a minute, anytime the air conditioner or the heaters are running, the furnace. That goes down to a manifold. I've got video of the manifold from the pond, so we can insert that right here.
Oh, jeez. No
we
pressure.
We can insert it right there. Hits the little junction box. It's got a manifold that sends 4 weighted tubes out to our aerators, and maybe even from behind us you can see 1 or 2 of the aerators.
And we run at least 2 aerators 24/7, 365.
Yes.
In the summer we run all 4 of them.
That's right.
So once we hit ice out, then we turn on all 4 of them and they get going. Why do we run just 2 in the winter?
Yeah, so in the winter you're not going to have very much biological activity going on.
True.
We only have amphibians and turtles, reptiles and amphibians and insects and minnows are what live in the pond currently. So not a huge draw or need for oxygen. If we maybe had bass and bluegill like we hope someday, then maybe we would run a different paradigm. But the other issue is that in a shallow pond, if you turn the water over too much, you can actually supercool it.
Oh.
Because part of how water and lakes and ponds work in the northern climes is they create what's called a thermocline.
Okay.
And below the thermocline is slightly warmer but lower oxygen. And so you're trying to balance getting the oxygen so that the fish can survive, but not making it colder than it should be.
I
So,
thought it was because you didn't want people
yeah.
and or deer
Yeah.
to walk out on the pond and fall through because the
Yeah.
aerators were keeping the ice thin.
That is a concern, and we do have signs on the roadside.
Mhm.
I have signs that say that it's unsafe ice.
But we live in Minnesota. I mean, people know. Don't go walking out on somebody's pond unless
Yeah.
you know what you're. Unless you know the pond,
Yeah.
you know, because lots of ponds have springs underneath where things don't freeze quite like you might think.
And we have signs that are kind of like the McDonald's cup signs that say that the coffee is extremely hot. Don't pour it all over you. So if you are trespassing on the property, it says don't trespass without permission and unsafe ice. So
Fair.
yeah. So yes, so that's a good point. We only run 2 diffusers and we run one air pump. We did change our original air pump. Was called a piston pump,
It was noisy.
and it was super noisy, extremely noisy. It could run all 4 aerators, super noisy, caused a constant hum 24/7 in the house, which honestly I
Not
found
acceptable.
intolerable, and then was 10 times more expensive per month to run
Like in terms of kilowatt hours.
in
and
kilowatt
stuff.
hours compared to the 2 diaphragm pumps that we now run. So we run 2 pumps down to 4 aerators in the summer, and then we run 1 pump down to 2 diffusers, aerators in the winter.
Great.
That's awesome.
That has made a big difference.
That has made a huge difference because it
And-
creates
The birds love it.
yeah, the geese
birds
and the ducks
love it.
it's kind of like a jacuzzi.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. We've created a waterfowl jacuzzi, and so they go in there and they do their jacuzzi. It also has
jacuzzi.
It also has increased the motion, so that disturbs the what is
The
it called?
stagnant
The
water.
duck. Yeah, the duckweed
duck-
doesn't like the constant motion, and it now creates plenty of diffused oxygen, which makes everybody that lives in the pond happier, and it makes the bacteria that we're putting into the pond happier. That's the next thing that we well, actually, yes, I did start using those big huge muck blocks.
Oh, they
Co-
smelled terrible. Do you
Oh,
guys remember that? They're like these blue, I don't know.
You block. They look kind of like a blue salt block,
Yes.
but yeah, they are
Oh, they smelled so bad.
stinkalicious.
Oh my gosh.
But they did a nice job of putting bacteria that eat the muck.
But we don't use those anymore.
We don't. So we used to use those. We also used a product that was I think it was Pondworks, and it was a liquid bacteria. It worked okay. And that was more to clear up the pond.
That was pretty expensive, wasn't it? The liquid bacteria?
No, that's why we used the original stuff. It was
Ah.
less expensive.
Okay.
I mean, it's still expensive, quite honestly, if you add it all up.
Let's not.
But I mean, look at the difference. I mean, it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
If you are sitting on a property that has a green pond,
There is hope.
and we know what works. I mean, we legitimately know what works in Minnesota. It actually works. We started with about 5 to 6 inches of muck the moment you stepped off the shoreline. And then once you got 10, 15 feet out, it was, knee deep muck. You just go sinking straight down.
Yeah. The water wasn't deep, but the muck would hold you. I mean, it was dangerous. It
Yeah.
wasn't good.
But with the muck, big muck blocks and that liquid pond bacteria, we started to see along the shoreline, you could then walk out 6-8 inches or feet, and you'd be starting to see sand and gravel. And then we even have a video where I was further out with a yardstick, and we had reduced the muck by 50% or some such
Don't promise
thing.
them that they're going to get to see that video. Don't do it.
Critical video. Search for the video, because it actually is where we've measured the reduction in muck. But still wasn't to my satisfaction.
No.
Um,
So what did you do, Steve?
I got the muck rake. Love the muck rake. That though,
Is that
I mean,
Rakezilla?
that's the Rakezilla.
The
Yeah.
Rakezilla.
If I did that religiously, it really, really helps further because it stirs up the muck.
Mm-hmm.
You pull out all that organic stuff and you throw it out on shore.
That would speed up the process.
Plus, I'd look like a swimmer.
You,
I would. I would have the physique of a swimmer. So you can
Mr.
tell.
Universe, right
You
here.
can tell that I don't do that on a regular basis. But it's a heck of a workout doing that. I also used it. Remember, we put the fencing mesh
Yeah,
kind
we
of
put
stuff.
some deer mesh on it.
And I would pull that, and I would pull in 50, 60 pounds worth of duckweed
Yeah.
and throw it onto shore. Again, there's video you can see. The amount of biomass is amazing.
That's what I was going to say, is we went through a period where we tried to manually remove duckweed, and we would just pile it up in these huge piles along the shoreline, and you would be kind of proud of yourself
Yeah.
because you'd been out there stroking it all day, man, and
Yeah.
this huge pile, and then you'd look out and nothing. Like
Nothing.
you honestly could. It's like taking a bucket of water out of the
Yeah.
ocean. It's nothing.
Yeah. Well,
that was
very,
disheartening.
very disheartening, and it's because again, the entire pond. It's 3.5 acres, sometimes 3 acres, sometimes 4 acres, but let's just say 3.5 acres. It's 100% covered with duckweed. We would wait until the wind action had blown it into one of the two bays, and then it would be in the bay that we would be pulling it out. It was 8 to 12 inches thick of duckweed.
Yeah.
And so no matter what we pulled out, once it went back out there, and it doubles every day.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous plant.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal
It's
filter.
sort of like buckthorn for a
Yeah,
pond.
I know. We moved on here, and the invasives are impressive.
They are.
It's duckweed. Some people who have little ponds love it because it feeds the wildlife. It's high in protein, and it's a natural filter. The problem is that if that said natural filter then dies in the winter, where does it go? It
the
goes
bottom of
to
your
the
pond.
bottom. It's most of the muck that is out there. So no, we didn't want that.
Right.
So with the aeration, with the reduction in the runoff and the nutrients coming from, just the runoff, and with now what we've done is natural waterscapes. We use
That's the company.
That's the company.
Okay.
They're out of, where's the Little League World Series?
Williamsport.
So they're located in Williamsport. One of our bucket lists is to go to the Little League World Series and then drive home with a crap load of bacteria.
I didn't know that bacteria part was part of the bucket.
Oh,
list.
absolutely.
I was just gonna go watch the baseball.
Oh no, I'm all about the bacteria.
Oh my gosh.
So so we use 3 of their products now. Pond Cleanse,
Yes.
Muck Remover.
Yes.
They look like they're the little white Tums.
Mm-hmm.
And then their black dye, reflective black dye.
Right.
And
So
that's
let's
what we
just
like.
talk about the dye for just a minute.
Yeah.
How often do you put dye in?
Very infrequently.
I think we do it twice a season.
That's what we did it this year,
Uh-huh.
but it has been insufficient because of all the water. So
we
never
had a lot of rain this year.
Yeah, we've never really gotten the pond to be black this year. There's too much going on. So we've got
We did try blue once, didn't we?
You hated the
Yeah,
blue.
we didn't like the
I
blue.
actually I only used 25% blue, 75% black, and that was still too much for me.
It's very artificial looking, in our opinion.
Yeah, and I didn't even use the blue. I used midnight blue, and that wasn't that. Full disclosure for Natural Waterscapes, if you're watching it, wasn't your blue. Have never used your blue. Love your black.
That's right.
Only
you
use
should
the black.
still sponsor us.
Yeah, we're all about Natural Waterscapes because it works considerably. Their muck remover and the pond cleanse works way better than anything that we used previously. And we've used 3 or 4 now. I've experimented with 3 or 4 different types of muck removing bacteria, and the same for the water bacteria. If if I stay regular with pond cleanse, the pond is pretty much clear.
So the pond cleanse kills the duckweed?
Well,
What
both
does the
of
pond
them.
cleanse do? What is it?
It is bacteria
Okay.
that eats the nutrients and the organic matter that's floating in the water.
Okay.
And then the muck remover is same thing, but down at the bottom. So pond cleanse bacteria need more oxygen
Okay.
than the muck bacteria.
Okay.
Using just the muck remover does help the clarity of the pond, because not all of the bacteria is going to be sitting at the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and they have some that go and do their deal.
Little bacteria.
The little bacteria. But we've been treating every couple of weeks, and that has our pond A. Last year I started, another thing that I did. Last year I started using the whatever is the generic of Flumigard.
Okay.
You're going to have to look up what the active
that an
ingredient is.
herbicide?
It is an herbicide. But we only use the amount for direct contact spraying. I did not want gobs and gobs and gobs of herbicide in my pond, right?
Also, we
So-
were very concerned. We do have a large amphibian population
Yeah.
here. We have a lot of frogs and toads. We have a lot of turtles.
Yep.
We probably have snakes, although I've never seen one.
Salamanders.
Salamanders,
Yep.
right. So we didn't want to kill all that stuff
No.
off. I mean, we want to improve the pond, but we don't want to be apocalyptic to the animals that
That's
live
right.
here on the way to improving the pond.
That's
so
right.
we were very judicious with
Yeah.
our use of the
Yeah.
Flumigard.
Yep.